Three friends bought a storage locker at an auction. It belonged to a reclusive photographer who vanished without a trace in 1978. Inside, they found old newspapers, rusty tools, dusty boxes. But the real treasure was an envelope of black and white photographs from the 1970s. When they looked at the images, their faces went white. The photos showed them the same clothes, the same scars, the same jewelry. But the photographs were taken in the 1970s. They'd never been to those places. They'd never known those people. And the worst part, in one of the photos they were standing at a grave. Their own grave, with death dates that hadn't happened yet. I received that envelope 3 days ago, and now I understand that the silence doesn't just exist in space. It exists in time. I still heard the voice from the 1944 radio, calling me to join them. I still saw the man in the dark coat by the tower in the forest. I still felt him counting down 3, 2, 1. I thought I'd found the source of the silence. I thought it was the cave. Then the radio signal. But these photographs changed everything. They proved the silence doesn't exist in one place or one time. It's everywhere. It's always been. And it already knew us long before we were born. The three friends were named Marco, Elena, and David. They were ordinary people hunting for treasures at auctions. Marco worked in tech support, Elena was a designer, and David was a librarian. They'd been doing this for a year. The auction was at an old warehouse, selling belongings of people who died or disappeared. The storage locker belonged to a man named Edward Kane. Almost nothing was known about him. He was a photographer, but he never published his work. He lived alone in a house in the mountains and vanished in 1978. His locker was put up for sale with the rest of his things. Marco paid $30. He had no idea what he'd found inside. When they opened the envelope, inside were 32 black and white photographs. The first few showed ordinary landscapes, mountains, forests, and old farm. But then they saw people, and they recognized them. The first photo that caught their attention was taken at an old train station. In it stood Elena. She was wearing bell-bottom jeans and a striped sweater. She'd never worn anything like that. But it was her. The same face, the same smile, even the scratch on her cheek. Exactly the same one she'd gotten from falling off her bike as a kid. Next to her stood a man in a 1940s military uniform. Elena said, "I've never been to that station. I've never seen that man. And this photo looks like it's 50 years old." She turned it over. On the back was written, "Elena, 1942, Fort Smith Station." Elena shuddered. She was 27. She was born in 1994. How could she be in a photo from 1942? They went through the rest of the photos. Each one showed them. Marco stood on an old bridge surrounded by soldiers. On the back, Marco, 1943, Red Rock Bridge. David sat at a table in a cafe with a group of men in uniforms. On the back, David, 1944, Golden Horse Cafe. But the most horrifying was the last photograph. It was taken at a cemetery. All three of them stood by a grave. On the headstone, their names were engraved. And death dates. For Elena, 2026. For Marco, 2027. For David, 2028. Elena dropped the photo. She whispered, "That's our funeral." Marco tried to calm her. "It's just a coincidence. Someone faked these." But David walked to the window. He said, "Look at the light. Look at the shadows. This isn't fake. It's real." They decided to find Edward Kane. Marco found his standing on that same bridge, but now old. On the back, Marco, 2055. But the most terrifying was another photo hidden inside the book, tucked between pages. It showed all three of them standing by that same grave. But now the headstone had different dates. Elena, 2055. Marco, 2056. David, 2057. And beneath the photo, a handwritten note, "They will return." Elena asked, "Return where?" David answered, "Where it all began. To the beginning." Marco said, "This isn't about time. It's about a cycle. We live the same life over and over." And Kane knew it. He photographed us in every cycle. Elena looked at the grave photo again. Then those dates aren't our deaths. They're the end of the cycle. And then we start again. They decided to leave the house. They got in the car and drove. But when they returned to the city, something was different. The streets looked different. The cars were older. People wore 1970s clothes. Elena asked, "Where are we?" Marco stopped the car. They got out. They were standing on their own street. But now it was 1973. David said, "We went back. We crossed into the past." Through the book. They ran to their house. Another family lived there. They looked through the window. Inside sat a child. A girl. With a scar on her cheek. It was Elena. As a child. She was looking back at them through the window. She was smiling. She recognized herself. I sit in my office, staring at these photographs, and I realize that the silence isn't just an entity. It's an archive of time. It doesn't just collect people. It collects their lives, their cycles, their repetitions. And Edward Kane was its conduit. He saw the future. He saw the past. He saw everything. And now I know that we're all part of this cycle. We're born. We live. We die. And we start again. Every time with the same faces, the same scars. And one day we'll find these photographs. And we'll remember who we are. And then the cycle will close. And a new one will begin. If this recording is ever found, I hope someone remembers this story. Maybe the truth survives only when people remember it. If you're hearing this, don't let it disappear. Because one day someone will find this recording. And they'll remember. And then the cycle will begin again. It always begins again. But now I know what to do. I know I have to break this cycle. And I know where to look. In the next episode, I'll tell you what I found in that basement in Edward Kane's house. But that's a story for another time. And it's waiting for you. If you want to see what happened next, look for the next episode on this channel. It's already waiting.